What's up, boys and girls? Welcome back to another episode of Anything But Basic. And, I've always had my suspicions that the AI was watching me and releasing articles based on, I guess, conclusions that any sane person with eyes and ears in the cryptocurrency space would come to. One of them being, as I've discussed in the last, I guess, two videos, the same thing that I've been talking about, where Bitcoin is going to become more difficult to acquire via the fact that more mining equipment is going to be centralized and used by these big institutions, and that Bitcoin would need some way to not diversify itself, but upgrade itself in such a way that it becomes an attraction to new investors. But this article explains why that would be a bad idea, and it's a pretty long one, so I'm gonna get into it. But before I do that, let's learn the word of the day: ossified, hardened, into bone. Just to say hardened, or impenetrable, or in the OPSEC language, ossification is hardening, aka becoming hack proofed. And that's what this article is about. Do you become hack proof, or do you become flexible but with the ability to be hacked? So let's start the article. Dry chain I should get some water for this. Dry chain could ossify Bitcoin's blockchain for good. Dry chain could provide any avenue for continued development on Bitcoin while not compromising the security created by ossification. This is an opinion by Nikita Choshinsky. I'm not gonna say that again. A software developer working on BIP 300 sidechains. So he's in the thick of it. Okay, it reads: Today, Bitcoin faces a challenge. There are two contradicting requirements necessary for success, and if we want to win, we have to find a way to satisfy both. First, there is a requirement for security. It is paramount when billions of dollars are at stake. In the world of security professionals, paranoia and conservatism are necessary. Conservatism are a necessity. Any single change introduced into Bitcoin software is potential security vulnerability. Ideally, we would freeze Bitcoin's code base and then never introduce any changes that don't fix security vulnerabilities. This first requirement is already on its way to be satisfied with the creeping ossification of rainbow hands, which is not a conscious strategy, but an accidental political reality established as a result of historical events and technological limitations. Every single change that touches the consensus must go through a long, extensive, and rigorous process of deliberation. You can see this with the Taproot soft fork, which took 46 months from proposal in January 2018 to activation in November 2021. And in the more recent OP_CTV activation controversy, it may be by accident, but we are on our way to satisfying the first requirement. There is a grave cost to the unconscious strategy, though. In the existing accidental ossification regime, we are subject to an extreme and perhaps even justified level of risk aversion. Because if a decision is reached and a risk is taken, every single Bitcoin user must bear the risk. Technological improvements either take years to implement or are rejected outright in such a regime. We will never see some technological advancements. In the current situation, Bitcoin will never see zero-knowledge cryptography like it is on Zcash, Zcoin, and PFEX, or ring signatures implemented like it is on Monero and Monero clones. And so Bitcoin will never have a strong privacy. Only Bitcoin's competition will have strong privacy. For scaling, we will be stuck with the Lightning Network and its custodial solutions. Lightning is great for as far as it goes, but in terms of scaling, it has limitations. Its capacity to onboard new users is limited, and it has yet unsolved UX challenges. Besides some proposals that make Lightning meaningfully better, such as sign hash, any priv out, will either take multiple years to activate or never be activated. This is all to say nothing of more experimental ideals and technologies such as Blockstream's simplicity proposal. It enables smart contracts on Bitcoin with a better design than existing smart contract implementations on altcoins. Given the complexity of this proposal, it's very unlikely to see the light of day under existing process. Only Bitcoin's largest competitors will have smart contracts. And that's not all. Besides that, there are already existing technologies improvements in terms of privacy scaling smart contracts, which Bitcoin won't see implemented. We will voluntarily or worse accidentally relinquish the power of all future technology innovation to our competition. Our competition is not constrained by ossification at all. Significant improvements are already left on the table. Imagine how far behind we will be within a decade or two of progress in cryptographic and computer science if the situation does not change. In order to win, Bitcoin requires a mechanism for change and adaptation to achieve victory in the competitive environment it is in. It doesn't matter how great Bitcoin is in its current state. Without such a mechanism, Bitcoin's potential will stay fixed, and its competitors and adversaries' potentials will grow. In this situation, no matter how far ahead you are, and no matter how far you're behind, your competitors and adversaries eventually will catch up. Failure to adapt in a competitive environment usually doesn't work out, unless at some point there is a transition from the traditional and isolation of the Edo period to open-mindedness and modernization of the Meiji period. The British will show up with ironclad Gatling guns and rifles, and you'll be stuck with a samurai sword and horses. There are two inconceivable requirements we have: change and security. The only good way to reconcile them that I am aware of is to separate Bitcoin into two isolated layers. Layer 1 needs to be a complete ossified base layer, never making any non-security improvement changes. In all likelihood, it would be the existing Bitcoin core. Layer 2 needs to be a sidechain layer that is free to take risks and implement any arbitrary features. I think you basically just described Litecoin, because that's what it was there for. And it was discussed heavily that Litecoin would be the testnet for Bitcoin, which was its biggest feature. But nobody wants to see that for some reason. I don't know why. There must be a secure two-way peg that lets anyone transfer funds between the base layer and any sidechain on layer 2 at a 1-to-1 exchange rate. This two-way pegging mechanism perhaps is a blind merge mining arrangement. Should be the only two things that connect layer 1 and layer 2. I still think you just described Litecoin. With this mechanism, the decision on how much technological risk to take on would be made individually and unilaterally by every single user. Any user can move funds into a particular sidechain and voluntary assets. Its trade-off, all voluntary accept its trade-offs and risks are move them back to the ossified security of the base layer at any time. This individual taking is not taking off risks and trade-offs, which only affects the people who partake in it. We replace the existing process and collective risk-taking through deliberation by the entire community and all of or nothing introduction of changes that affect every single Bitcoin user. There already exists a custodial implementation of this ideal, the Liquid Network. Oh, forget Litecoin and Lightning Network, the Liquid Network. Oh, shit. Jesus. But because it is custodial, it is flawed. In order to attack, you would need to compromise 5 custodians distributed around the world and not just one, which is a lot better than something like Coinbase, but it is custodial nonetheless. Liquid success has been pretty limited. It's December 2014, December 14, 2020. According to LiquidNet, there are 3,560 BTC pegged into the network. That's around 71 billion, so not billion, 71 million, or 0.019% of the current circulating BTC supply, slightly more than 19 million coins. It is better than nothing, but an implementation that relies on an 11 of 5 multi-sig controlled by 15 functionally incorporated companies around the world requires an unacceptable level of trust for a supposedly trustless distributed cryptocurrency, which is reflected in people's reluctance to actually use it. Yes, there is only 71 million in it. You know, it's funny. There's a lot more Bitcoin in Binance, and that just got hacked. We'll talk about that later. Snap. There's a non-custodial implementation of the exact same ideal proposed in BIP 300 and BIP 301, the drive chain. This requires a soft fork to be activated, but it is distributed and trustless. The two-way peg is secured by paying all sidechain transaction fees to the miner to perform a fixed and very simple set of functions. You can get the full description of the mechanism in the BIPs. This is a substantial security improvement over Liquid. In order to attack Liquid, you have to compromise by incorporated functionaries, which are woefully insufficient security arrangement given the kinds of adversaries Bitcoin might face if it continues to grow. It sounds like you already hacked it, sir. It sounds like you already been in it, already got out and left something. In order to attack DriveChain, you have to perform a 51% attack sustained over 3 months, while making it painfully obvious to every single participant in the network that you are performing an attack and giving said participants plenty of time to respond. With DriveChain, we have a way to reconcile our two irreconcilable requirements for change and for security. We can ossify Bitcoin more completely than with existing accidental political reality. Kind of ossification. We can perceive Bitcoin's trustless and distributed nature, and at the exact same time, we can ensure that in the future, we would be the British with metaphorical ironclads, Gatling guns, and rifles, and our competitors and adversaries be the ones stuck with the metaphorical samurai swords and horses. This is a guest post by Nikita Kashchinski. Once again, I'm not saying that. Opinions expressed are entirely their own and do not necessarily reflect those BTC Inc. or Bitcoin Magazine. Jeez, I'm done today. And that's the article. Basically, somebody created a more tightly wound version of Lightning Network and Litecoin that sits on the blockchain, the Bitcoin blockchain, and is now trying to push it. And it does. This is some valid points. Bitcoin shouldn't just be, just freely open for anyone to upgrade. But that was the whole point of making a peer-to-peer cashless system, is so that anybody can come in and make upgrades. But yeah, at some point, maybe it is good for Bitcoin to just be Bitcoin, and it's been good at just being Bitcoin. It hasn't changed. It's the alligator. It's the alligator of cryptocurrencies. Its strategy has worked for millions of years, and there's no real need to change it other than make it somewhat less susceptible to a few diseases. We'll call them diseases that just happen to spring up every now and then. But I guess the nuclear bomb of the allocator would be, in this case, Bitcoin, would be just the whole network being shut down by internet service providers. But will that happen? I don't know. So what do you guys think? Do we think we need to create a second layer and separate Bitcoin from, in certain layers? Or do you think the competitors are just going to outperform Bitcoin and eventually we'll just move to something else and call it Bitcoin? But let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.